Over to you.
All right. Welcome back to this week's episode of High Angels by Dr. Michael Heiser.
Yay!
Yeah, we're still in chapter 2. Actually, we're wrapping up chapter 2. So today it's going to be a short session today.
Oh, I thought it was chapter three.
Oh no, we still have more stuff to go through before we get to chapter 3.
Oh, sorry.
I know you're excited, Larry, but
Okay.
we gotta I want to sit and park on these things.
Okay. I'll calm down.
But I understand because I don't like oscillating around just defining terms. the whole the whole time is like, without even a diagram of how these all go together. Like I need a visual.
Which I saw your visual. That was a great visual.
Yeah. I might bring it up at the end of the thing so we can sit and pick it apart.
Sure.
I actually might need to be more specific. I'm gonna probably ask it next to be more specific with it and see if we can refine it a little bit more through Claude. But we'll have to wait till 11:30 when I get all my tokens back.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sadly limited.
I understand.
All right. So this is the final section of chapter 2, and Heiser goes in and talks about Gabriel, Michael, and the Prince of the Host. And so Gabriel and Michael, they are very famous angels. They come up in the New Testament, and Michael is mentioned in the Old. But Gabriel often is a messenger angel that is talking to prophets. He announces Mary that she's going to be pregnant with baby Jesus. Gabriel mostly send messages. Michael sort of is the ruling angel. He's the one to take down Satan in the book of Revelation. So he gets famous that way, and also Michael shows up in um, actually a rather distinct part of the Old Testament, mostly in Daniel,
Hmm.
where we see him have his job, but they're not generally talked about. And then, but Mike Heiser limits himself to the 66 book canon. So
Wink,
we're only
wink.
going to hear about Michael and Gabriel. So Raphael the Ninja Turtle angel is not going to show up this time.
Ah, was hoping for some pizza.
I know. Right? Yeah, so in the 66 book canon, Michael and Gabriel are the only named angels that really show up in the text. In the Deuterocanon, or the extra books from the Greek Old Testament Septuagint, there's another chief angel or archangel that's named Raphael, and he makes an appearance. Now, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael also show up in the Enochian stuff,
Hmm.
occupying the same position,
Hmm.
right? Yes, yeah, they're up there with God as part of the seven archangels, watching Semyaza do his thing, and are just completely aghast and saying, "God, did you hear Semyaza's out down there doing uh, degenerate things?"
Hmm.
It's like, ooh, yeah, yeah, they're the watchtower.
Mm.
Yeah, they're a little watchtower society, maybe calling out Semyaza, but it's a little joke. But they're not the watchtower society. Yeah,
They are
disavows.
watchers in a tower.
They can be very well, which is, I mean, if you can see, you're a watcher.
Yep.
What is that, like Elohim? Elohim
Yeah.
is a
Yep.
watcher.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If an angel has eyes, well, they can watch. So it's anyway. But that's a digression. So
Right.
one observation to note is that angels often have theophoric names, right?
Hmm.
And this is kind of significant to the conversation of what exactly are these angels, because especially like Michael, you have Mika-el, who is like El, as if we were to translate his name absolutely, or Gabri-el is like mighty one of El, or Raphael, El heals, right?
Hmm.
So these are all significant. So if they're all significant, so would that explain that these different angels are just um like natural forces or just exertions of God's power or sefirot or emanations or things like that, you can easily make that case.
Mm. Or does he just name them for the distinctive purpose he has for them?
Well, I think they're distinct for their exact purpose, like you said, Larry. However, time is not really spent on sussing that out because they just want to move on with the story.
Yeah,
They're just more
exactly.
important. They're more interested in what's going on in the story than like here. Michael arrives on scene to Michael arrives on scene to talk. And is that well here now let's go into a long, deep Tolkien-like diatribe on the whole lore behind Michael the Chief Archangel. And then
Mm.
oh well he has a friend and six more of them. And then oh here's the background lore for all of them. No, they don't do that.
Hmm.
They don't do
Hmm.
that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
Michael is he is named, we know his purpose, but the story has to keep the pacing.
yeah. Hmm.
If we look at it from a more literary angle, because it doesn't seem to suss out where they stand on the heavenly hierarchy, either the text is enough to explain it to us where they are, or it's not that important and we just need a distinction of figures to know who's talking and who's being interacted with in the narrative,
Sure.
right?
Yep. They serve their purpose and hardly more.
Exactly. So, Gabriel and Michael are also called archangels, though the term is absent from the Old Testament. In Daniel 10, Michael is referred to as one of the chief princes, and that's Hasar and Hishonim, and he is assigned to ethnic Israel. He is described as contending with the angel in charge of Persia.
Mm.
So this is where the understanding like the 70 nations each having a corresponding angel described to
Hmm.
them that rules over them as a prince. Well, this is a direct one-to-one connection
Right.
with that. So Daniel likely is talking to Deuteronomy 32, who's
Mm.
also talking to Genesis 11.
Mm.
And of course with if we use the Ugaritic material and all the ancient Near Eastern stuff like building a divine council, we can clearly see we can start to build out the council here of who sits where.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. So, however, per Heiser, he is distinct from the Daniel 8:11 Prince of the Hosts, who is linked to the second Yahweh Jesus. And that's kind of the point that Heiser wants to make because he doesn't want Michael and Jesus to get confused,
Mm.
of course.
Hmm.
Now, Jehovah's Witnesses will say that Archangel Michael is another name for Jesus. It's like
Hmm.
a code name, which is interesting, but I don't quite get that. I don't
Yeah.
think I respectfully disagree with that statement, but I
Yeah.
see where they're coming from
Yeah,
because a lot of where angel of Yahweh, commander of Yahweh's host, second little Yahweh, how Heiser explains him overlaps with this prince of the hosts.
okay. What Jehovah's Witnesses actually believe on that is that Michael becomes Jesus when Jesus is born on earth, and then when Jesus ascends to heaven, he reverts back to Michael. It's not just another name for him.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Oh, so Jesus is the code name for Michael
Yeah, kind of,
in their
but
system. I appreciate you, Mike. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I apologize if I messed that up because I'm ignorant a lot of Jehovah's Witness theology more than I should be. So I appreciate you setting me straight. Right. But all the same, it's that you have a purpose and job and function overlap between Michael or the Prince of Hosts and the Angel of Yahweh stuff that Heiser just was explaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
However,
and well, and just to kind of hold that thought for just a second, in front of us, if we go back to the discussion that we had after last week, where I had Claude do all the research and the debating and everything. Um, it's it's not. There's about I think what did I come up with? Six different roadways through this whole what is the angel of Yahweh? And one of them was a clear this is an ambassadorial position, not necessarily a Christophany, but it's a one of the cogent, coherent ways through it is that this is an angelic being operating completely conferred with all of the power of Yahweh, such that when you're dealing with this being, you're it's like you're dealing with Yahweh, but it isn't him. It's somebody vested with all as though he is him. So, in not saying that that's the truth, all I'm saying is that this was one of the six different ways that um, could be drawn out of the text, meaning Genesis to Revelation, as to angel of Yahweh. So, kind of hanging on to the JW thought. I'm not saying that the JWs are right. What I'm saying is that um, they they may be starting somewhere and arriving at a bad conclusion based upon some bad data, but where they're starting from, if they're starting from angel of Yahweh as an angelic being who is coming with all of the conferred substantive representation of Yahweh, then they're not necessarily starting in an erroneous place. They're just taking it where it shouldn't go and to where it doesn't match the rest of the data. It gets incoherent when you run off in the direction that they run off in. So I just want to put that very fine tip on that pencil that we're not necessarily saying that their starting point and that their instinct is wrong. It's just how they put the data together and how they make conclusions about it is easily knocked out and go, no, sorry, you just don't get to go there. But that also then turns around and flows the other direction because what it says, and this is kind of a pushback against Dr. Mike, is no, it is not 100% lock that angel of Yahweh is actually Yahweh. There, put a you can't put a 100% lock on that because there's about six different roads. Two of them are really bad, and that leaves four that are decent. And now you've got to choose one. Well, one of them is where Dr. Mike lands, which is this is a pre-incarnate Christophany. And here we are again talking about Michael and JW's wanting to feed Michael into Jesus, just as Mike got done saying, where Michael becomes Jesus and then magically reverts back afterwards, which is, I think, rather insane, but I can see where they could start and then completely go off the rails.
Yeah. Because like you're saying, Larry, a lot of it is trying to have a consistent and coherent bird's eye view of the data to inform a conclusion.
Yep, exactly.
Right. Well, like, because even when we talk with Schofield, it's like
Mm,
he sees multiple accounts for creation,
mm,
and so he tries to reconcile the two, like all the different creation accounts, and then he ends up with this pre-Adamic race and the millennium, like millennium years before
Mm-hmm.
creation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so it's like I get it, but I just disagree,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I see they're trying to make sense of all the data and have it coherent, right?
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
harmonize it all so that it accounts for every piece of data, but yet it's cohesive.
Exactly.
Same thing with Tatian making his diatessaron. Is that we have to harmonize all four gospels into one to make it coherent.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Which I find a bit of a fool's errand. But
yeah, it can be because again, yeah, because especially if you look at the Old Testament as an anthology,
mm-hmm.
not as all one continuous book,
Mm-hmm.
you're able to account for the idiosyncrasies between each of the books.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Wellhausen was pointing us with his JDP is that because you look at the text as an anthology, they have different authors, and then that's where your different sources come from.
Yeah. I mean, and I can understand what he was trying to do with what it is that he knew. I mean, I get that. It doesn't mean I agree with him. It just means that, yeah, I can see what he was trying to do.
That's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. You don't have to agree with them.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly.
You're
And yeah, kind of a little fine point there for people who are watching later is absolutely do not be afraid if you have an abject fear of dealing with people or listening to, reading, and consuming the material of the people that you think disagree with you. If you can't do that, um, then you're missing a wealth of data that could help you. If nothing else, it helps you to solidify your own position, but it also may surprise you and cause you to go, huh, well, I never thought of that before. There's actually more data there than what I considered might be. So don't be fearful of consuming that other material. Matter of fact, make it a demand of yourself. You know, you bring in the people who disagree. Let them get in the debate ring and slug it out.
indeed well said, Larry. Yeah. So to continue, I think I just said okay. So
I think you're on your
continuing our
very
thought.
last line.
Oh, very last line. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's where you were.
Okay.
Or-
Yeah, so Michael is one of the host and would be below the prince of the host, who is this, second Yahweh, angel of Yahweh, commander of Yahweh's host, Jesus.
Mhm.
That's where Heiser is going to this because he's trying to move. Yeah, because you see, he's trying to move the conversation to end at the conclusion he wants,
Mhm.
you know, which is kind of funny to see.
Oh, that was the thing that we had done. We wanted to see if Claude could fill in all of the stuff that we thought that Heiser might be leaving out. That was the point of the exercise, and that was the PDF that I sent you guys.
Yeah, I need to look at that because I need to add that to my model. So that's very important.
Yeah, yeah. I think you'll find it very interesting because there's a lot of stuff there, and it's good, meaty stuff too.
Oh yeah, because I sincerely lament that Heiser limited himself so much
Yeah, yeah,
with but with I'm going to stick to the 66 book canon. It's
yeah.
like, well, you can't really get a broad view of the tradition. This is why there's a book I got called Gustav Anderson's Dictionary of Angels, and he
Mm,
talks about and he goes into the complete historical tradition of every angel that's brought up in like the history of the angelic doctrine.
right, right.
Start from Hebrew, and he goes into like the Greek stuff and the magic, the Testament of Solomon stuff, and
Mm,
even to John Dee, and for
hmm
his like anyone that really deals with angels, he has a source on that,
mm,
which is pretty great. But Heiser's not going to recognize all that because he's an evangelical.
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
like he like he's not going to be reading the book of Abramel and the Mage to figure out about holy guardian angels. He's not going to do that.
Yeah, which is a little disappointing given that from my point of view, he's the one who drove me down the trail of let your dissenters in the door, let them into the debate arena,
Mm-hmm.
and let them, like I said before, let them slug it out. So when you see him actively barring the gate to the other streams of potential shaping information and people that may just flat out disagree with his evangelical conclusion, suddenly, I'm a little disappointed. I'm not disenchanted, but yeah, I am. I'm disappointed because it's like, wow, Doc, you taught me to do this, but then you turn around and you've got an opportunity and you don't do it. Now I'm feeling cheated,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah, because we like meaty content, but then he also needs to make this accessible to laymen,
yeah, yeah,
which,
yeah.
which actually is important because even
It
like some
is.
because like especially reversing Herman
Mm,
um is probably one of the that was a really good move of Heiser to do to introduce his material to a layman level
mm-hmm,
and give you sort of a rundown of a cohesive what Heiser is about. And then
mm-hmm.
if you want more, you can read the rest of the book. But again, but his books don't read like a scholarly treat, like a scholarly study. It reads like a theological exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're reading a generic theology book, it reads the same. It's not
Yeah,
heavy on footnotes. It's not, well, it's heavy on footnotes, but you just, from the way that the text is organized, it's not, it doesn't come across as like absolutely scholarly.
yeah, yeah. So if you amputate the footnotes out of that, you can still get the story.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But books like Reversing Herman, or even if you want the short material of his of the different papers he wrote,
Hmm.
is like, yeah, those are accessible, and laymen can definitely understand those.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just when you hit him with Reversing Herman, Heiser's got to ease him into it on the shallow end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Probably
yeah.
picking up the stuff for the first time. I was like, what's all this alien stuff? It's like,
Yeah,
what?
I mean, yeah, you definitely you don't want to take the babies to any place other than the baby pool. Because if you
Yeah,
toss them in the 20 foot, they're gonna drown.
yeah. You got to ease them into it. But
Well,
I think Reversing Herman does that.
it
And
does. And
yeah,
the other part is there were some guys on the Facebook channel that's dedicated to Dr. Heiser's work. One of the guys had said, "Hey, does anybody have all of the source materials and resource uh, um, attributes and citations and everything that Dr. Heiser and his guest give across all 459 Naked Bible podcasts?" And I was like, that's a really great question and it's a great ask. So I so happen to have all of the transcripts, the very finely done, detailed transcripts from all 459 Naked Bible podcasts. And so I handed all of that to Claude and said, "Hey, build me a bibliography out of this." And it did. And there are literally thousands of bibliography, citations, books, papers, uh, websites, sources, resources, you name it. I mean, it is huge. And so that's out on my Obsidian site for anybody that has or wants a link to that. And what it does is, and the reason I bring it up is because it shows you the depth of this man. He was not shallow by any means, which makes it a double, perhaps even triple disappointment when he goes into a book and he's got this Mount Everest of resource standing behind him, and he barely ticks the meter.
I know. That's why I'm frustrated with angels. It's like,
Yep.
it's like you're giving us so little here.
Hmm.
I mean, I get why he wants to limit himself because he wants to see, okay, well, what does the 66 Protestant canon say about this topic?
Hmm.
But he's limiting himself when he could use so much more, especially like from the Dead Sea Scrolls stuff.
Oh, yeah.
All the Jubilees and Enochian material he could
Yep.
plug in here.
Yep.
That talks to his other papers, mind you.
Yep. Yep.
Like all the Ugaritic stuff and any ancient Near Eastern things,
Yep.
So it's like
Yep.
all of that is applicable, but yet we're just not going to use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
just not going to use it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Like you, I get it,
come
but
on.
yeah. It's almost like if he were still with us, if he were still alive, the ask would be do the expanded version of Angels. Take Angels and just completely blow it out. 66 books is not your border. It now becomes anything and everything. And how do you put all that together?
Yeah, that's what I want to know because that's just one of the big things of this Angels text is that it's just Heiser, why are you cutting yourself off from all the stuff that's going to really round out your case here?
Yeah, yeah.
You
So,
know,
okay, well we've beat that horse thoroughly. Where where are
exactly.
we? I mean, over like the last 5 weeks, we've totally annihilated that point.
Yes, yes, yes. We have.
But it's a great point.
It is. It is. It is.
Okay, to continue.
All right, so we're going to continue back to our slide here. All
Hmm.
right, so to quote Heiser directly from this text, this thought trajectory is of course marred by the description of Michael in Daniel 10:13, one of the chief princes. If Michael is the commander of Joshua 5:14, then that commander is but one of the commanders of Yahweh's host, any of which could presumably have told Joshua to remove his sandals because he stood on holy ground. This suggests in turn that any number of angels could have occupied the space with Yahweh in the burning bush or had been identified with Yahweh in Genesis 48:15 through 16. This simply isn't consistent with the way the angel of Yahweh is portrayed.
Hmm.
Further, the claim of Joshua 5:14 is that the commander leads Yahweh's heavenly host. The prince is not assigned to the people of Israel as in Daniel passages.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh goodness. But what if it is though? Like why does it need to be that, Dr. Heiser?
Yeah, because we suddenly, with our work of last week says, no, there's six different views of this. And while two of them might not be the best, four of them still are left standing. And one of them is that angel of Yahweh is not Jesus. And if that's the case, what's going on? And then how does that impact this paragraph that we're looking at in front of us?
Because I think Heiser digs a hole here, and it's that or digs in, it's that telling Joshua to remove his sandals because he stood on holy ground links to angel of Yahweh, not to Michael. But if it is Michael, then in a way that's like equating Michael with Jesus,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's
which
trying to
is
stand
which is
clear of that.
weird, and I don't see how that happens.
Yeah, but I can understand why he's wanting to create the distance, right? Because he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Mike and I were having a conversation with a man over in Wales, through a brother that we both know, and I had said something, um, uh, you know, because I'm very much a person who lands on what I call early Binitarian framework, which is that there's Father and Son, and there is no third person spirit. It is the mind of Father and Son, so on and so forth. Anyway, he immediately leapt on top of that and went, "Oh, so you're a JW. You believe like the JWs." I'm like, "No, no, that's an assumption." So it taught me how quickly people take something like that. And of course, this guy's a heavy Jehovah's Witness apologist, right? He spent decades, learning how to argue with JWs, which, okay, fine. Um, but to see him so quickly try to make that link and then turn it around and weaponize it, I can understand, um, Dr. Mike's reticence of and his goal of being very careful in his language so that he doesn't draw the you know the crosshairs don't suddenly paint his forehead and then somebody's looking to squeeze a trigger at him
Yeah.
you know so I get that and but anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's just is that if your one link to distinguish the two is that the removing your sandals because you're on holy ground, if that's the one thing you have, like you need to do better than that. You really need to do better than that
Yeah,
because that's really weak. Um,
yeah. Well, one of those choices, one of those four remaining choices of angel of Yahweh is an angelic being who is coming. The picture got painted that um, a king can send an emissary
mhm,
who is, for all intents and purposes, for the audience that the emissary is facing, he is the king.
mhm.
So what he speaks as though he's the king, if he says something, it doesn't matter whether the actual king, and I'm not saying that angels do this or that Michael would do this or whoever. All I'm saying is that in the human context, this representative of the king, this emissary, is as though the king is standing right in front of you. So from that point of view, where this guy stands is as though Yahweh is standing there, right? And if that be the case, then it may well be that you could make the case, remove your shoes because where you're standing is holy ground. Well, yeah, because the king's emissary is standing right in front of you, and this is a matter of respect.
Yeah, but Heiser needs that to be Jesus or visible Yahweh.
Exactly. And the question is, well, do you? Isn't
Well,
there
that's what
other
I'm
things?
saying is that because it very well could be Michael because again, angel of Yahweh
Hmm.
is not Yahweh. It's the angel that belongs to Yahweh. Of is a possessive, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So just even
Or
on that
or
on the title alone, it fails.
yeah, or
But
is it genitive where it's this is this is something of, right?
yeah,
Angel of.
yeah. Like either way, it's still there's a separate person, but he bears the authority and mandate of Yahweh.
Hmm.
It's just who is it? What do we call it? And what is it doing?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? What's its nature? What's its nature? What's its function? Right? And what do we call it?
yeah.
But Heiser wants to really move us that this angel of Yahweh just is pre-incarnate Jesus in the Old Testament,
Well, and
and he
coming,
spent and he spends like many pages just trying to make that case. But right here he's trying to distinguish this angel of Yahweh second person Jesus from Michael because they sound similar but they're not the same.
right,
That's what ultimately he's trying to get at here. But
correct.
again, but when you really look at the text and you just kind of read it for what it says, Michael very well could fill those description too.
Yes.
It's just we have to wait till Daniel for him to be named,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So yeah, but it's just
Which of
Heiser.
course, well, it just. it pokes the question of, okay, but why? What's going on with Daniel that Daniel suddenly knows this angel's name that has been nameless up to this point, right?
Right.
And if you want to turn it around and go back the other direction, if I'm going to stand on Dr. Mike's side and question it, then why is Daniel suddenly the knower of the name and nobody before him?
Because it had to be revealed at the right time.
Yeah, that would be a stock answer. Okay. I'll pull that one down off the shelf, I guess.
Yeah, I mean
But it's
that's what
not
Justin Martyr.
satisfying.
I mean that's what Justin Martyr says. It's like it had to be the right time for God to
Yeah.
send it, and
I
then
could
He gave it to us, not you.
I could just well, yeah, so now Daniel is what Daniel's a Gnostic guy? I mean, is that what's happening with Daniel here?
I mean, very well could be. I mean, prophets are receiving private revelations and messages. I mean, we get that throughout all the Old Testament. So,
True enough. I mean,
so,
true
so there,
enough.
so there, so there is a Gnosticism there, but then it's that, well, if you look at it realistically, it's like you're, what was it, Ezekiel walking around for 2 years naked across the desert to show Israel what they're going to be like.
Yeah.
If they keep doing what they're doing, and it's like,
I know who you're talking
okay,
about.
well,
Yeah.
that's like crackhead behavior. Why would we listen to you? And it's like, how dare you not listen to prophet of Yahweh? It's like, well, listen, we were told by God in the Torah to vet you
Yep. Yep.
and be skeptical of every prophet that comes by. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. And it's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah. So we're
why should we
questioning.
trust you? It's like,
That's right.
well,
We're questioning you, naked boy.
exactly. It's like, yeah, crackhead behavior is like, it's not going to get people to line up behind you. No.
I would put Daniel in that, right?
I'm not calling Ezekiel a crackhead, but I'm saying it's that.
I know, I know. I mean, I get it. I get
Yeah,
it.
but
It's
it's
very
that. Yeah,
bizarre behavior for a normal
yeah,
human
but streaking across the desert,
being.
like a maniac, saying, Israel, this is going to be you if you keep doing your sin and breaking Torah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, not a lot of people are not really inclined to believe you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just because they did it in the Old Testament doesn't mean that it's socially acceptable at the present
Well,
moment.
right. I mean, is that we forget that there's like a human element to this.
Yep, yep. No, exactly
Yeah,
right.
it's like, yeah, because there's definitely a human element to all of this, and we just have to realize that, yeah, we probably would have thought Isaiah was crazy too, honestly.
So, yeah, so I mean, the, so in the description of Michael, other than demonstrating that Michael is not Jesus, where do we sit with this on this particular slide?
Well, I'm going to go into that.
Okay.
Just hang tight. I'm going to go into that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, because Prince of Hope, because again, if we look at the, like, I think it's like Sar Sevaot, or Prince of Hosts, could either be the same as the Prince of Princes or is different from the Prince of Princes.
Yeah, what's included, because if there's multiple princes, saying that there's a particular prince out of the group of princes is not necessarily naming Jesus. It could be a whole big group of prince angels, and this guy just happens to be the chief one or one
Right.
of the chiefs ones, right?
Right. Right. Because even the title of chief establishes hierarchy, but we'll get to that. Just hang tight.
Gotcha.
Just hang tight. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So to finish this off, Prince of Hosts is above the chief princes. As the Prince of Hosts, Heiser equates to his angel of Yahweh, Jesus. So Michael and the national princes, or sarim, would be below this Prince of Hosts. Michael assists this divine man in Daniel 10 verse 13 and 21. So there's this divine man that's assisted by Michael. Now, it very well could be another angel.
Is that
I
the
have to
guy
read
with
it.
the linen?
Yes. But again, a man clothed in linen is like, well, that's angelic messenger language. That's
Yeah.
Malachim language,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So again, going back to is that, well, if this divine man happened, if Heiser needs us to be Jesus, well, then that takes us back to last week's presentation where it's that, okay, well, you know, where are Malachim on the hierarchy of, like, if Jesus is a Malachim, right? And then,
Mm.
well, the Malachim is also Yahweh, but it's a Malach in the council, but then, all that confusion.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that we
The
just,
lack of clarity is
yes, the
perhaps
lack.
the yeah, yeah. We just don't have the clarity that allows us to see that
Mm-hmm.
straight ahead.
Thing is, if Dr. Mike made an infographic, it would solve 90% of this book's problems. It really would.
I
It's
tried to make some infographics. You saw that, right?
hmm?
You saw that I made some infographics, didn't you? Out of
I
the
don't
out of
think
the
I don't think I have yet.
Oh, I put them on there. And if you scroll back in the chat, you'll see them.
Okay.
But you do those, there's like 8 of them, and they go together with that PDF rewrite that I did of what I thought was chapter 3, and I was incorrect because I thought we were doing chapter 3. But nevertheless, they go with the PDF.
Cool.
So
I'll look at that when we wrap up here.
sure, 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 sure.
I need to collect those and integrate that into my model for other presentations.
Got it.
All right.
I won't claim that they're right. I'll just claim that they are.
Well, they're useful all the same.
Correct.
I appreciate it, Larry.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Glad to help.
So, continuing.
Yep.
To continue Heiser's quotations here, there remains another point of proof for this identification. In Daniel 8, the passage where the little horn is magnified, even as great as the prince of the host in verse 11, and rise up against the prince of princes, verse 25, has an intriguing parallel elsewhere in Daniel. Since most scholars identify the little horn as Antiochus IV, the little horn is the king described in Daniel 11, verses 36 to 39, a description that fits Antiochus IV very well. These parallels lead some scholars to suggest that the titles of Daniel 8:11 and Daniel 8:25 are epithets that refer to God himself. This makes good sense if the prince of the host and the prince of princes is the angel of Yahweh, the prince of Yahweh's host in Joshua 5:14. The parallels cannot be adequately explained if the phrases in Daniel 8 point to Michael. Michael cannot simultaneously be one of the chief princes and the God of gods. Now, uncited and unused by Heiser, this is my personal note, but there's this Adventist scholar, Uriah Smith, that I found very useful, where he connects Daniel, John's Apocalypse, and the books of Maccabees to link all the prophecy to Antiochus IV as the little horn. And this is also backed up by Josephus. So there's a historicism to that thing. But digression aside, Heiser is still trying to make a distinction between, what Michael is doing and where he fits in, and the angel of Yahweh, commander of Yahweh's army. So you have prince of the host and against the prince of princes, right? So you have the prince of the host, the Sevaot, and the prince of princes, the sarim, right? Actually, let me go to my next slide because this might. Yeah. Okay, so picking this apart, right? So these parallels lead to scholars that some suggest that titles of 8:11 and 8:25 are epithets that refer to God himself. This makes good sense of Prince of Hosts and Prince and Prince. Okay, but who is this God himself? Is that Yahweh? Because remember, we can't assign God a distinct set of attributes. If that's Elohim, right? So who is that? Is that is the angel of Yahweh, the prince of Yahweh's host, right? But he's trying to say that God equals Yahweh, but tarnation. that God equals Yahweh, but also this angel of Yahweh also has to be Yahweh too.
Mm.
And that just is the second Jesus, which proves, Old Testament Binitarianism, which is a stretch.
Mm.
All right. So, but I counter with this. So if the Prince of Hosts equals the Prince of Princes, which are the roughly 70 national angelic rulers, if we
Mm-hmm.
link that with Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9, and Genesis 11.
Mm-hmm.
If Israel holds the chief status, then that makes Israel's national angel ranked higher above all other national princes. Persia's prince does not have that chief designation. Called the Prince of Princes, this figure absolutely is Michael, right?
Mm.
Because if the chief prince is Israel's guy Michael, right? Michael equals chief prince,
Mm-hmm.
but Persia's is just a prince. So now you see there's a hierarchy in the thing. Because it's operating from a Jewish frame, obviously the angel of Israel is going to be the one on top.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
so the other 69 nations or 70 or 69 nations is going to have Persia is does not have this chief designation. So Michael is going to rule the other 70.
Or at least from the Israelite point of view,
Yep.
he's given position that, of course, the 70 other angelic rulers of the 70 nations are going to dispute, but that's fine. They've been doing that all along, okay. But
Yeah.
from Yahweh's point of view, from Israel's point of view, their angel is the best and the chief. My dad's bigger than your dad.
Yeah, because especially when the Old Testament is written from the Jewish frame,
Hmm.
they're going to prioritize their own people. It's bias. It's not they're not going to.
Yeah, so what you're suggesting is that by insisting that Prince of the Host, Prince of Princes is Angel of Yahweh is Jesus. What you're suggesting is a an anachronism from a Christian point of view, especially a late Christian point of view, and perhaps even especially an evangelical Christian point of view, is that, well, that must be. There's no other choice. We're locked in tight on this because we've sense lurking danger if that isn't Jesus. And we don't know where to put Jesus in the Old Testament if we start blurring the lines, and the next thing you know, the sheep are getting antsy because, oh, I smell a wolf. So, I mean,
Well,
I can get where this goes.
yeah, because what happens is a fundamental assumption of Christianity
Hmm.
that underlies what we do is that Christianity has been foretold in the Old Testament, right? And we get this from passages where Jesus was on the road to Emmaus and he expounded them everything from the law and the prophets and how it pointed to him,
Exactly.
right? And so that establishes an assumption we have, a hermeneutical rule
Hmm.
that the Old Testament is all about Jesus. And that ultimately leads to Justin Martyr saying is that you see, I have the gnosis of Jesus to tell me what the Old Testament actually says. You are confusing your own conceits because you rejected Jesus. And so
Hmm.
you need me, the Christian, to explain to you what your text actually says.
And now
Because
we
you don't
have,
understand that
so now we
properly
have
without.
the anti-Semitic pride and a way for it, along with the Gnostic heavenly download that is exclusive to Christians.
Yeah, that's kind of where that comes from.
Yeah.
Is that because Jews don't properly understand their text unless they have a Christian to guide them, but then Jews bite back and they say, well, Christians don't understand the Old Testament unless you have a Jew to guide you.
Yeah, yeah,
because Jews actually understand Hebrew and it's their ethnic text, it's their national story.
yeah, which
Like they
kind
know this
of,
inside and out.
yeah, which kind of,
By the time they're what is it, 13?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, whenever
The
they're bar
bar
mitzvah. Like,
mitzvahs.
yeah, they've been through the Torah already 8 times
Yeah.
by the time they reach bar mitzvah age.
Well, and until you start, uh, pointing them at Isaiah 44 and saying, well, maybe, maybe you don't know what's in your right hand. Um, and the other side of it is too is that, sorry, this thing started out as a purely Jewish religion with nothing but Jews in the
What?
sheepfold.
Oh no!
Yeah,
You just
and
you just broke everything, Larry.
I know. I I've got sledgehammers for that.
The theological rage room.
That's exactly right. Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
once you boil it down to that, this whole thing begins in a 100% Jewish context, then and now you've got believers and non-believers in that Jewish context. All of that, well, you're a Christian and you don't have a Jew to lead you. Sorry, that what were you doing 1900 years ago? And oh, by the way, let me point at all the places where you started declaring what you believe for 1,000 years before that. You started declaring it as heresy because you were bleeding converts over to the Yeshua, Hamashiach side of the Jewish camp, and you just couldn't have that because your power was draining out of the flask. Oh, I mean, so but then you get the flip side where you think they're right because you're looking at pagan Greco-Roman Christians who are absolutely arrogant and prideful, and they're trying to, completely obliterate, uh, Israel. We're the new Israel. We're the replacement Israel, blah, blah, blah. And now we've got a right for our anti-Semitism and our right to hate you because you bunch of Christ killers. Oh, what a mess.
It is. It is.
Yeah. But going back to your point, which is why does an angel of Yahweh have to be a pre-incarnate Christophany? Where, yes, Jesus, okay, it is true. Jesus walked the road of Emmaus. He did tell those disciples, and their hearts burned within them. And he did that. And he very specific. He's not messing around. He is pulling himself out of the Old Testament. What we don't have a window in is the specific details that he gives them. And we have to rely on the writings that follow that moment and wait for them to explain and somehow transcribe uh, some or part or all of what it is that the Lord shared with them in order to get the gritty detail of it. But I don't, as far as I know, we don't have that. Not in so many words, do we?
Oh no, this is where it gets gray and like the unfilled holes.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we take that, the thing that isn't backfilled with details, and then we just run off with it like a bunch of 5-year-olds, and we just start making stuff up. And the next thing you know, we've coined technical words like hermeneutic, and then
Larry, listen, everyone else makes stuff up. I am the one that's correct
well,
all the time.
I'm okay.
Important distinction there.
Yeah, all right, all right.
For those listening, I'm being sarcastic.
Exactly.
I'm just a guy. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
we're
just a
all
guy
just
that reads
guys.
stuff. I'm not an expert, but
Nope.
yeah, but people get carried away with things, especially like one verse.
Well, and this
As
is
much as
kind of
one verse, and they can just, it's like that's my life verse, and then they just run off in a direction.
yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the thing with I don't know if you got to read that Crick material this afternoon.
Not yet, but my wife Emily here has been studying that, and she's got words
Ah, good.
on heaven.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't want to get I don't want to get into the Crick weeds,
yeah.
but um the thing that came out of that was how quickly it so you've got this whole charismatic thing that really comes to its fruition in the 30s and the 40s and even on into the 50s, right? And it gets its seedling foundations inside of there where it's actually being argued about. And it only takes from the 19 from about 1950 to about 2000, which is 50 years, to go through two generations of Christians, and it goes from things that we're arguing about in charismania, things that are being argued about, to doctrines that you don't question. And that's just 50 years. Now turn it into 2000. We've got these hermeneutical rules and so on and so forth that we just accept face value. Somebody says, this is true. Really? How do you know that? Where did you get that from? And so, you know, to be a little bit of a, you know, fly in the ointment here, I can get your counter, your first counter. We haven't got to your second counter yet, but I can get the first counter and I can give it some space because I'm not thoroughly 100% lockstep with Dr. Mike on Angel of Yahweh absolutely must be, in order to keep my place in the guild, it must be a pre-incarnate Christophany Jesus. Huh. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But if it's not, does it destroy my faith? Does it destroy Jesus? Is there anything about Jesus that changes? That's a more fundamental question. If I abandon Yahweh or angel of Yahweh as a pre-incarnate Christophany of Jesus the Christ, and then I roll that forward into the New Testament, how does Jesus become not King of Kings, Lord of Lords, sitting at the right hand of the Father, and he's going to come back and resurrect the dead and give us all brand new glorified bodies? How does any of that change?
Well, because I don't think the legwork has been done to establish. I mean, Heiser's trying to establish a coherent Christology and cosmological model out of the angels doctrine.
Mm,
However, it's very messy. He like we observed before, he's shifting goalposts on what the angel of Yahweh stuff,
hmm
and it's not making sense. And it's like we just need a coherent model. But the thing is, Christianity just is phobic
hmm
of a coherent, consistent cosmological model. So it's Trinity, angels, Satan, demons, and they're in a cosmic war with each other. Like that's in practicum how we view the cosmos, because we don't really have anything else.
Yeah, we've got to
Yeah,
we've got to make
we
it.
literally don't have anything else to bounce it off of or explain, because if we do, maybe it sounds pagan or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Even though paganism offers that they have a story, they have a consistent cosmology, They know how the gods function. They can account for all of that and actually draw you a coherent diagram on how all of it works.
Or at least from what they were told or what they observed or whatever. And even, and the reality is I think is that, Israel is that polemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're all operating in the same context.
Yeah.
They're all borrowing in the sense of I think I think Yahweh has set the rules. He's put the whole thing together. I think that's what Genesis 1 and 2 is all about. This is him ordering things. And now all they do is they just take the order and they just distort it and lie about it, but it still has all of its parts and pieces. And I think that's really what you're pointing at is that the parts and the pieces are there. And I don't think they're I think they tell that story 3,000, 4,000 years ago, and they let that thing spin up to the point that they've got so much sunk cost in the story that even the pagans are afraid to change it once they move on, further along. And
Well,
they're kind of
it's,
locked in, right?
well, it's also just the cultural norm, right?
Well, yeah. Well, there's
Because
that.
also everyone has a vested interest in the story, because that sets your calendar, that
Hmm.
sets your festivals, that sets how you do religion.
Yeah.
The story is central to the lifeblood of the faith and of the people,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah, because again, without the try doing a temple without the Torah, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Try doing Judaism properly without the temple, you can't do it. That's why the school at Yavneh literally saved Judaism from the jaws of death.
Yeah, because they had to
Or
figure the
at least or at least the Maccabean Judaism. The Pharisees who were left when the dust settled.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and there was no between first and second temple, at least they had some prophet-based prophecies telling them, yeah, we're going to come back and we're going to try this thing again. They had nothing coming out of second temple. They were
well,
literally launched into the void.
what's even more is that Yochanan ben Zakkai was let alive by a fluke,
Uh, hmm.
which is remarkable to think about.
Hmm. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, but it's just like you would have the hardest time recouping Judaism after the temple if you didn't have the school of Yavna.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
The thing would have crumbled to dust.
well, yeah, I mean the Samaritans would have been left in maybe more Jewish diaspora or Jewish Christians in diaspora, but
Right.
that would be the remnants of the Jewish faith.
Yeah.
Because all the rest of them would either live in Alexandria, who are Hellenized, they've already merged with Greek religion, or all the traditional Jews would be just slaughtered like they were.
Yeah. So not to devolve and digress too far away from angels, but
Mm-hmm.
just for anybody who's listening in the future, what we're talking about is not, don't feel like Orthodox Christianity is what we're saying is threatening towards it. It's not threatening at all. It's what what is the breadth and depth and range of the data that is available to us as we're putting the puzzle pieces of first century together. And we're trying to get this puzzle because Jesus comes in the first century. No doubt. 2,000 years ago, the Lord came. He's real. He's there. He lived, ministered, died, rose, ascended, the whole shot. It's all there. The issue is, um, and we're not threatening orthodoxy except to say what U.S. Christians, and I spent myself personally 40 years in this arena of this, uh, is that I, I look at that 40 years and I suddenly see a man with a 5-year-old faith. And yes, was that a saving faith? Sure it was. Yeah, there's no doubt. For 40 years, I was a saved, born again man, but I had a 5-year-old faith. I had a kindergarten faith. And all we're really doing is coming up into the adult years and saying, is that all there is to it? Are there more details? So I just want to add the note in here that for anybody who's suddenly um, phobic and frightened, that, oh my God, they're talking about things that are going to destroy my faith. No, no, that's the point is to increase your reasons for being allegiant and loyal to our Savior, and to increase your what the Lord, what you take into you, that the Lord uses to build the mind of Christ in you so that you can be joined to your brothers and sisters to form a more mature. And look, if you can't handle, and I'm speaking directly to those that might be listening, if you can't handle it, that's okay. Galatians has your answer. The Galatian church is an absolute mess that Paul is writing to. And his final word to them is, look, I've written to you as much as it is that I can. Somebody's bewitched you, but look, at the end of the day, if you guys think differently, God is going to reveal even this to you. He doesn't say I'm going to write you 10 more letters to straighten you out on every single thing that is stupidly going on in this church. He ends off with, God has this in control. The Lord is going to reveal, and it's the Lord's revelation that will ultimately straighten you out. I'm not going to do it. I've given you everything that I know to give you. So I'm just pointing at that tonight and saying, okay, don't worry. We're not trying to destroy Orthodox Christianity by any of this. Um, we're just trying to enlarge what the Lord is feeding us so that He has what it is that He needs in that field of our hearts to build the mind of Christ together so that we can grow up into a mature church together to represent Him in this generation better and with more clarity and with more power to change the hearts and lives of the people around us, because we live in a very desperate world that is teetering on a brink. But anyway, your second counter. You did your first counter. Second counter.
All right, second counter. All right, so either the Prince of Hosts does not equal the Prince of Princes, right? So this would be establishing like two. If we looked at this in a diagram, you have the chief prince and the princes below him,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have there's a second prince distinct and separate from the Prince of Princes that has the hosts or the Sevaot below him.
Mm.
And this would sort of match the commander of Yahweh's army, right? So if the
Mm-hmm.
commander of so ideally the commander of Yahweh's army would be different from the Prince of Hosts, would be different from Prince of Princes, who is the head of all the national princes.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Okay. This is why diagrams are important, people. So I can't
Mm-hmm.
do
Mm-hmm.
this. But it's just the identity of who these are, because the Prince of Hosts, which is the commander of Yahweh's army, which taken the totality of the Protestant canon looks a lot like Michael,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the Prince of Princes, we're told the chief prince is Michael. Of the other national princes, is that well, it seems to be the same guy, which we see the first counter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then here's the second counter, is that it very well could be this option too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so if we look at it like a hierarchical tree, which I sort of just explained, is that these would be distinct.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, this is not fleshed out nor clearly diagrammed, because Heiser's focus is on that Daniel talks about the second Yahweh, who is Jesus, who is absolutely the Prince of Princes.
Mm. So this is probably the place where it might be a good idea, because I think your next slide is the questions and discussion slide, right?
Why, yes, it is, Larry. Your
There
thoughts on
it is. You gave us a sneak peek, man.
I did on
You did.
accident.
It did.
I
So
accident I accidentally leaked it.
you did. But so here's the thing that I wonder is this the place to bring up the diagram that you shared with us in the Facebook group?
Yes. Yes. So, for those who don't know, I have joined the Claude army, and I'm going to move it over here. And so I created a diagram in my Claude of, because I asked it to, using Heiser's material, run down for me a hierarchical diagram of the heavenly order, and sort of to lay out how this is all going to work. Right now,
Yeah.
I want to hit this again with a refinement,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a little less organized than I'd like it to be. But
Mm.
at the top here, you have Yahweh, who is most high, uncreated, El Elyon, all of that, right?
Right.
Now, you have the bene Elohim, sons of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says princely rank, and they outrank the messengers. So the sarim will outrank the malachim, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see the malachim down here below. That's the general messengers. That's the host sevaot, right?
Right.
And we also see it here with the host army. The giborim are of the sevaot. The watchers, the irin, are probably, we can link both of these probably under malachim.
Mm-hmm.
But before I get too far into that, above them you have, so of these sons of God, B'nai Elohim, you have the capital A, angel of Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
Across from him, you have Michael, Prince of Israel, and then you have Gabriel, the messenger prince.
Mm.
So you see all of these sort of are in the same box, right?
Yeah.
And then also directly under Yahweh, that's grouped by function, not rank, you have the cherubim, seraphim. These I would move up here because they are the guardians of the throne,
Mm-hmm.
and they're
Mm-hmm.
surrounding Yahweh's throne. So geographically, they'd be close to up here. So maybe
Yeah,
moving
yeah.
to the side here. But then the Irin, the watchers, and the Tsevaot obviously would fall under this Malachim, right?
Yeah.
And then they categorize this by nature terms apply to every tier, which is the Elohim, the Ruhot, spirits, Kedoshim, holy ones, and Kohibim, the stars.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course I'm out of tokens till 11:30 tonight. So
Yeah,
so this is as far as I can get right now.
yeah, yeah,
But the
yeah.
thing is, if Heiser added one of these to the back of his book, it would solve so many problems.
Yeah.
If he just visually diagrammed all this out of what he meant,
Yeah.
we could obviously say. But what happens is Heiser, now notice angel of Yahweh is distinct from Michael.
Mm-hmm.
And we've discussed before that angel of Yahweh could also be Michael in the way, because Michael is an angel of Yahweh,
Yeah.
like small a angel of Yahweh, right? So is
Right.
Gabriel. Like, so if Yahweh sends angel of Yahweh, it's an angel of Yahweh I'm talking to. It very well could be Michael or Gabriel or any of the other ones. But
Mm-hmm.
what Heiser goes at is that Yahweh embodied is this capital A angel of Yahweh, which he directly links to Jesus,
Yeah. So,
which moves this Malach Yahweh up here to most high uncreated with Yahweh. So you have two most highs, but then you have the other angels of Yahweh, which are B'nai Elohim, but also Malachim. So you have Malachim down here, but you have one Malach up here, which is confusing. And that's where Heiser bounces back and forth from.
Yeah.
Because if you have malachim down here, that's your council.
Yeah.
But if you have a malachim up here, the council kind of disappears because it's actually just Yahweh emanating himself
So
in
that
a
that
mode,
well that yeah, exactly.
and
Which
then there's no council.
yeah, so now you're stomping into the territory of, well, gee, depending on how you do this, you get modalism. If you do it another way, you've got, the JW theory, where Michael and Jesus are modally switching places depending upon the geography, if you will. But it leads me to a question, which is, so what is it? Genesis 12? No, Genesis 13, where you've got the three men that come to visit Abraham. Uh, I forget, is one of those an angel of Yahweh?
The tradition states that it's Yahweh and two angels
Yeah,
accompany him.
but it's not
Christians
the
will take it
angel.
to say it's the Trinity.
Eh, yeah, which
Can
is
be, but
horse
I mean,
hockey.
yeah,
From my point of view, that's horse hockey. It's
I
not the
mean,
Trinity.
but that is an idea because but then there's also in Eastern Orthodoxy, there's an icon of the heavenly visitors, and it looks like three angels
Hmm.
sent by Yahweh. So because they are heavenly visitors, they are Shemayim,
Hmm.
right? But if actually, let me pull up the text here because I got Blue Letter Bible. It's Genesis 17.
No, I thought it was Genesis 13. Right before. Uh, oh, no, no, you're right. No, that's no 14. You're right. I think it's 14 because 13 is Lot selecting Sodom and then Abraham getting everything that's left over. Actually, he's getting the whole thing, but nevertheless.
Well, Genesis 14 is the Melchizedek passage.
Okay, so is it 15?
Uh,
It's right before the destruction of Sodom.
It's here. 15.
Genesis 15. Thank you, Emily. Yeah, after these things, the word of the Lord, which is the tetragrammaton, came unto Abram in a vision.
Oh.
Oh, wait, no, that's different. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
the promise. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is 17.
there, Genesis 13. He removed his tent and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which
Right?
is in Hebron. All right. And
Well, it's the
then
back half of 13. Why am I not remembering where this is?
I'm embarrassed for Christians watching. It's like, you don't know where this text is? Do you even read your Bible?
Yeah, right.
What's wrong with you?
Uh,
Here you go. It's Genesis 18. 18. And the Lord Yahweh, which is the
ah,
tetragrammaton, appeared unto him at the plains of Mamre, and he sat at the tent door at the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and he looked, and lo, three men stood by him. And when he saw him, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and he bowed himself to the ground.
What's the Hebrew? People of the Hebrew version?
Let me do Strong's. And then, it's tool tipped. I like that. Yeah, because there's three visitors.
yep.
That's Yeah, because there's three visitors, and it says that Yahweh, that is the tetragrammaton, right there, appeared unto him, that's Abraham,
Hmm.
in the plains of Mamre, and sat at his tent door. And then lo, three men stood by him, Abraham, And when Abraham, saw them, Abraham, ran to meet them, plural, at the
Mm-hmm.
tent door. And he says, my Lord, which is Adon,
Yeah.
my Adon, which would be like to the like the leader of the three, right? Which would be Yahweh. And then the men arose up from thence and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went his way with them.
Yeah, down in verse 22.
But then there's one of the guys that said Yahweh stays with Abraham where Abraham talks him down out of destroying Sodom.
Yeah, but
and then we catch up with the two visitors who are angels that show up to Lot.
but the distinction is made there. So the men turned from there, went towards Sodom, but Abraham stood before Yahweh. So
Yeah,
Yahweh is still there.
Yeah, Yahweh is still there, visibly, showing up and talking with him. And then here in Genesis 19, verse 1, two angels that left Abraham to go to Sodom to talk to Lot. The word is actually malachim.
Right.
Yeah, the word is so you have two malachim, two angels to Sodom
with Yahweh.
With Yahweh, tetragrammaton head honcho himself speaking with Abraham.
So here's the point that I want to drive home is here is a Christophany. Here is a pre-incarnate Jesus, and I think anyone could argue this very well. And if the writer of Genesis were really, because this is the same writer, this is Moses, it's not anybody else, it's Moses or whoever is writing for Moses, I don't know. But what I do know is that this same writer who writes Exodus and Angel of the Lord in Exodus, as they are, the angel of the Lord is being sent by Yahweh, and my name is in him, and the whole shot. He's got another opportunity here to call him angel of the Lord, and he doesn't do it. He calls him tetragrammaton. He calls him Yahweh. This is the perfect opportunity that if he's really kind of hung up on angel of the Lord, this is a great place to use it. And he doesn't use it. It's nothing but tetragrammaton all the way through. Lord, 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 all of it. So where is angel of the Lord? Why the distinction? Why use it in Exodus and not use it in Genesis?
I say different authors initially as like the first reason. Second
Maybe.
reason, the thing is because
Remember, at least from my point of view, divine name pattern, this is not authorship, this is theological coherence.
Yeah, because the thing is, it is consistent through Jewish tradition that there is only one Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
One figure, one person is Yahweh.
Unless you're going to take the Binitarian uh, two powers theology that gets called heresy in, post 70 AD.
Yeah, but even in it's that, how do you explain that second power, which has the six different options?
Yeah. Well,
right?
no, the six different options are on angel of the Lord, not on Yahweh. Those are the six different options that I sent to you guys earlier. That's all angel of the Lord stuff.
I'll have to integrate and read that.
Yeah. And so this is again my question. You've got writers, you've got scribes, you've got guys that are responsible for handling this text, and they're choosing tetragrammaton all the way through this portion of the text where Yahweh is obviously physically he's eating Abraham and Sarah are serving him a meal. So he's physically there. And it's we're told that it is Yahweh. And but yet in a different book, presumably by the same author, Moses doesn't use he doesn't use angel of Lord here, and he doesn't use Yahweh over in Exodus. There's a clear line between them in his mind. And so my next point is that if this is Yahweh, an angel of the Lord is not Yahweh. If it is the thing that is one of those six ideas, explanations of who angel of the Lord is, well, now you've got some angelic being, potentially Michael, who is operating as this stand-in, who is completely imbued with, as though Yahweh himself is standing there. And the danger that I see in that, and one of the dangers that I see is this angel of the Lord occupying the Holy of Holies. That's the one chink in the armor that stands out to me immediately is, well, okay, if that's not Yahweh, what is he doing in the Holy of Holies? Well,
Well,
he could still be doing that because the thing about emissaries is they look, act, smell, feel, operate, talk, the whole thing as though they are the king. And the king gives them that power, which really fits with, Yahweh saying to Moses, you know, my name is in him.
yeah, because the deal with that is, what was I going to say? Because I had a really good uh, counter for that. Because again, when Yahweh's kavod fills the temple, that absolutely is him. But I
Yes.
think, but I think it's that we're missing the substrate, because if we looked at Yahweh like an ancient Near Eastern god, it's not a problem for him to directly intervene and visibly show up in an epiphany to his people, whoever he wants to talk to and interact with. He can eat, he can do any of that, he's fine, but it's just he's operating like an ancient Near Eastern deity.
So now
Not a problem.
are we letting this pendulum swing back to angel of the Lord is Yahweh?
Well, here's the thing.
Because it's a coherent argument. It's one of the six, and it's a good one.
Yeah, because again, I mean, if that's the case, it would either have to happen off page, or it explains, like, Yahweh's like, I need to take a break and go back to my throne because I can only be one place at one time. Can you keep Michael? Can you keep my seat warm for me while I'm gone so you can talk to this guy? Because Moses keeps complaining every single day about his people, and I've had my fill. It's like I'm doing office hours now. You can only complain during from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. You can only complain in those that period of time. Yeah.
Thousands of years
Uh,
ago, we still kvetch.
Yeah. Like Emily says, Jewish kvetching never gets old, right? But yeah, but the thing is it's just I need the clarity, because if we just I just realized.
Right.
Okay. So when I was doing studies on the Unitarian debate,
Hmm.
where did I write this down? Yeah. There's an argument. Why are you Yeah, there's an argument that gets used, which is sort of it's kind of yeah, it's the equivocation argument, right?
Okay.
So I wrote this down. He's like, oftentimes apologists may argue that due to Jesus performing divine functions, which is actions exclusive to God, that this automatically will make Jesus God. However, if it is asserted that Jesus just is God, Well, either Jesus is the God, an avatar of the Father, or a second God in addition to the Father if the personae are coexistent. So to link this to what we're saying, it's that, well, angel of Yahweh does Yahweh things, therefore angel of Yahweh just is Yahweh, but we already have a Yahweh. Who's the second Yahweh? Oh, that's the second power. Oh, what a nice little hole that Jesus can fill. See Old Testament Christianity.
Hmm. Yeah, see, this is where I'm going with, you know, I think the pitch that is being thrown to us and the ball that we have to keep our eye on is uh the 100% divinity of Jesus, right? Fully man, fully God.
Yeah.
That's a thing that we just can't let slip.
Yeah,
So
because
when we're talking about Old Testament Christophanies and high Christology, uh wow, that's a real, we don't want to swing and a miss.
yeah. Have you read Larry Hurtado, James D.G. Dunn, or Richard Bauckham?
I've used Hurtado and Dunn and her Bauckham.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good. Yeah, yeah, because those are your early high Christology theologians.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yep. Yep. They're in the quiver of arrows.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but then it just leads right back to the question of why is Genesis here in Genesis 18? Why is it using nothing but tetragrammaton? What is the realizing that a Jewish mind thinks functionally, right? It's not,
Hmm.
so we can just leave the whole substance out of this thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be there. Thinking functionally, why is Moses functionally choosing tetragrammaton in Genesis 18, but then doesn't use tetragrammaton in Angel of the Lord and connection to tabernacle? Is it because of the tabernacle? Is that why? Because that's the thing that really changes between here and there. Here, there is no tabernacle. None of that cultic material is living in this text in front of us. It's the only thing that I can see that's really different, other than maybe the teleology. This is not, because that's kind of the other difference, is this is the Lord interacting back and forth with Abraham, but in Exodus, it's a deliverance story. I mean, that's just me spitballing.
I mean, because there's also the controversial opinion that Jewish scribes like went and changed the language to have the tetragrammaton in there,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
which is
yeah.
the yeah, that's like the more Wellhausen, the Yahwist author is overriding the Elohist
Yeah, except
author,
that
but
we're
that's
we're not even in that camp, right?
well, I'm just saying. Well, I'm just saying, like that, like Wellhausen, like noticed this, and he's saying it's like, well, why are the different authors using the different name stuff?
Yeah. Well, and this is where Casuto pushes back on him to his face
Hmm.
and says, no, this is a theological understanding. These names are being used to within a theological context. Now, Casuto doesn't name it the way I name it. I go a little further, building on top of him, but Casuto lays the foundation. And matter of fact, what's really interesting is I think it was a month ago or so, discovered a a rabbi from about 1,000 years ago that was doing Casuto. He's doing the exact same thing with Yahweh Elohim and Yahweh Elohim. He's telling the same story. So it was already sitting there. Wellhausen just simply didn't have that in view, and Cassuto pushed back on him and those downstream of him saying, sorry, guys, your anti-Semitism is showing. You might want to cover that skirt up. And
Yeah.
I say that because this was this was a bunch of Nazis in pre-World War II that were trying to use Wellhausen to decorate their anti-Semitic Nazism. They deny it, but it's the evidence is there. The point, though, is that I don't think I think Wellhausen had the right instinct. I don't think he arrived at the correct conclusion. I think Cassuto and the guy from 1,000 years ago, I wish I could think of his name. Because they're Jews. That's who they are, and that's how they think. And they're looking at it and going, no, sorry, this is not different scribes and seams and Yahwist and so on and so forth. It's none of that. It's that this has a theological point to it. And so that's where I'm left with looking at this and going, huh, what's the difference between Exodus and Genesis? Why angel of Yahweh? And because I want to understand that. If I can't understand that, then I can't necessarily make a decision on out of the six pathways that I now know are there um, for angel of Yahweh. I can't choose one of those yet because I don't have anything to frame it in. Because they're all, well, not all, four of them are really good arguments. One of which is it's a Christophany. The other one is it's just some angelic being standing as an emissary of Yahweh, and
Yep.
Yahweh says, my name is in him.
Yep. Yeah, but then, what is the identity and function of said emissary? Because it
Yeah.
could be Jesus, it could be Gabriel, it could be Michael, it could be just another of the Elohim in the council,
Yep.
it could be an emanation or a sefirot. Um, I mean, we have several options to choose from, but it's just not clear because I don't think the author didn't really think that was important to meticulously lay out how this whole systematic works. And then here's the story that all of these dramatis personae are playing at. It's like God gets the credit, or Yahweh gets the credit for everything that happens to the Jewish people
Yep.
in the text, whether he does it personally by himself or an angel or through a prophet. That's the ultimate point.
Exactly. Yeah,
Because
which is, of course, bolstered by the New Testament, which says everything is for him and to him, right? It's all coming back around. It's his glory, his story, even if he's doing it through intermediaries, which is a wonderful thing that Susie and I were talking about earlier today.
but then if that is that this but then the thing is that so what makes angel of Yahweh? Because angel of Yahweh seemed like he's always presented as an intermediary. But
Mhm.
then, but the thing is, but capital A, angel of Yahweh, Heiser absolutely needs this to be Jesus, or else,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
because he's really shoving us in that direction.
Yeah, well, and so I mean, the kind of the other question that would arise out of that is take the wider look because we don't have just the tabernacle. We've got the tabernacle and we've got the first temple. The second temple is essentially, stillborn, dead on arrival.
Mm-hmm.
The kavod never comes back, right? So you can just kind of take the second temple off the map as in this frame, but you can bring both tabernacle and first temple aboard and ask who's in the Holy of Holies. Because in the tabernacle, and I don't know to say because I haven't looked, in the tabernacle, it's obviously angel of the Lord. That's who's occupying Holy of Holies. And as you had mentioned, kavod comes along with that, which
Yeah.
is kind of a check mark on the column of, well, yeah, this is a Christophany. This is Yahweh.
Well, well, but what if the agent is just imbued with glory of Yahweh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then it's still just an angel, but then Yahweh himself never fills the temple. It's like, does that
yeah,
would that make the Mishkan dead on arrival?
yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
or is there a cosmic rule that Yahweh cannot directly intervene into his creation, which causes a break between Genesis and Exodus?
Right.
Because if you notice in Exodus, it's always an intermediary. It's
Yeah,
not Yahweh himself
yeah, yeah.
that's interacting with Israel, talking to Moses in the bush. It's always through the angel, because the angel has to be his mouthpiece, right? But then we go to Genesis and we see Yahweh personally visits Abraham at his tent.
Mm-hmm.
We see Yahweh raining down fire from Yahweh,
Yep, yep,
on Sodom and Gomorrah.
yep, yep,
Yahweh directly intervenes there.
yep, yep.
Because
My point exactly.
it was that important to Yahweh to establish the covenant with Abraham that he went down personally to do that.
So
However, when
is
he's
it, what about the second? What about the covenant with at Sinai?
that's where you have that rabbinic debate that comes relevant, is like, well, Yahweh was there with 10,000 of his holy ones.
Yes.
Either he directly gave Moses the Torah, or through an intermediary angel, he gave the Torah to the angel to give to Moses.
Right.
But then, we have Paul that turns it into, oh, well, the Torah is entirely derivative of angels that hate you. It's like, yeah, it didn't come from God, because God sent us Jesus to liberate us from the Torah that the angels gave us. And it's like, so this is what makes me go, huh. But we're not here to
Yeah.
talk about the Paul stuff. But
No.
ideally, does Yahweh function entirely through intermediate? He does function through intermediaries, which is capital A, angel of Yahweh,
Mm-hmm.
the Elohim,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
all the different council beings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then there are certain times where he goes down and he intervenes himself, which is
Yes.
he shows up and speaks directly to Abraham face to face. Actually, Moses knew Yahweh face to face.
Right.
And
Right.
so
Right.
and so yeah, because Yahweh passed by Moses in the cleft of the rock, is like he revealed himself personally to Moses, not through an angel, but it was him from the language. You also have who else? Tarnation. um yeah, because he speaks through an angel at the burning bush with Gideon, with Manoah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. Yahweh shows up personally to Isaiah. He shows up personally to Ezekiel. He shows
Mm.
up personally to those other prophets that witnessed the Merkava,
Mm. Mm.
because that's
Mm.
his direct throne
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
which he rules the world, and he goes on. It's his little hover round. And
Yep.
yeah, but we see from the language, like that is tetragrammaton, Yahweh showing himself to his people. He's
Yeah. So
directly intervening, so he can. And that's par for the course with the ancient Near Eastern stuff, because the gods can interact with man all the time, or send an intermediary. It's up to them. It's not a big deal. However, when we look at it through the lens of Platonism, then it becomes a big deal, because now we're breaking the rules of classical theism.
mm-hmm.
And so that makes it think, is that, are we really looking at it from ancient Near Eastern? Because in order to set up divine Jesus, you need the Timaean framework from the Greeks. You have to borrow it. Like, there's no other way around it. You have to use Timaeus to get to a divine Jesus.
Oh,
So it's
whoa,
that,
whoa, whoa, whoa,
well,
whoa, whoa.
Heiser is going back to ancient Near Eastern, but it's still loaded with his presuppositions of that Greek Platonist framework, because he needs to be orthodox.
Mm,
Yeah, he can't go out on that limb, remember?
yeah, except the one question that I it kind of a hard break on the thing, kind of pumping the brakes here a little bit.
Ooh.
Um, uh, what you're saying in that, I think, what I'm hearing is that I've got a bunch of Jewish disciples who who have walked with Jesus face to face for a length of time, whether it's a year or whether it's 3 years. I won't debate that, but truth be known, they walk with him. They see him crucified, they raised and ascended, and the whole shot, right? They're all doing that inside of a Jewish frame. They don't need anything from Greece or Rome to frame that for themselves. None
They
of it.
probably Well, yeah, I agree because we see a lot of SE material come through,
Yeah.
because especially being around Galilee. I mean, they're not unaffected by Hellenism, but at the same time, it's that is it applied? I don't know. Could
Or is it necessary? I think is the deeper. Do
I,
they
I
need it?
I wouldn't say they need it. However,
They use
Judaism is
it.
already Hellenized for 200 years.
Well, part of it is. Not everybody. Part of it is.
But
We
like even in Galilee, because you have Greek temples in
yeah.
Decapolis and Tiberias and around first century Galilee.
And Jesus walks into Caesarea Philippi and points at Mount Hermon and says, there you go. There's a bunch of there's gates of hell. Let's talk about gates of hell. Um, you know, so I totally agree.
I'm saying
There's
that it's
impact.
yeah, because I'm saying is that there's impact. It's popular. A lot of the literati of the
Hmm.
Jewish world are familiar with Greek things, and they
Right.
employ Greek things. However, something that's natively ancient Near Eastern, we'd have to go earlier.
Yeah. No, I can
So
warrant.
yeah, because again, if you see all the people that's making a case for a divine Jesus, it's all Greeks. It's not the Jewish Christians making that case.
Well, because they don't need to make the case because for them it's already settled. They're only making a case because of an argument, and the argument is a Greek and Roman argument. And so they have to somehow shoehorn these Hebrew ideas, these functional ideas onto this material ontology that is permeating the surrounding world, that Greco-Roman world. So they have to deal with it. And it's the war that we find Paul in consistently is trying to walk the tightrope of using the Greek language to freight these ideas and yet also deal with his Hellenized Jewish brothers and sisters. He's man, it just gives a whole new meaning to him saying he becomes all things to all men. He's a bloody chameleon, and he's
He
got to
is.
be.
He is. He says it out plain.
He does. Absolutely, he does.
He says it plain.
So
But
that kind of brings us, so let's roll it back in because we probably need to shut this down so we can close out. We're at the end of your presentation. So where does all of this leave us with Michael and Gabriel and perhaps Raphael and the others?
so the thing with Michael, Raphael, Gabriel is that we do see them show up in the Enochian material.
Yep.
They're part of the heavenly court.
Yep.
They tattletale on Semyaza.
Yep.
Yeah, but they are referred to as archangels, and there are seven. But then the tradition will build upon itself. Um,
What do you mean?
is that they're part of this. They're part of, because normally there's 7 archangels
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
that get named, even if they make it, even if they make up the names of whoever's exploring the topic,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Um, it's it's normally Michael, Raphael, Gabriel. Like it's always those 3
Yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah,
at minimum show up,
yeah.
and so you have other ones like Zadkiel, or oh, what's another one?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
The
like Zadkiel, like all these other angelic names
mm-hmm.
show up in the tradition, but it's the tradition's different as we go on.
Yeah.
So it's not really a set thing, which is why I think it would be important. Okay, so when do we have a deposit of revelation that kind of tells you how angels work?
Mm-hmm.
In practicum. And so you have, Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite, which is the first real Christian treatment of angels. Jews are speculative all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably can't get a straight answer out of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's concrete. We have John Dee, who reports that he conversed with angels.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a set revelation from that
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
going on. So that's something to go off of, which has a religious experience to back it, to give it credibility.
Mm-hmm.
However, because even you have magicians, and I don't mean like card tricks, but people who actually perform magic, like occult
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
followers
Yeah,
that
yeah.
have grimoires, like you have the Enochian school of magic, where these people perform a ritual where they can directly interact with angels,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is the point of the ritual, and they derive information from that,
Yeah,
right?
which at indoor is certainly uh I think in that crowd, right?
Could be because she's more spirit. I'd categorize her as more spirit contact.
Yeah, 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 true, true, true,
Yeah,
true.
more, yeah, and spirit contact also shows up in Haitian voodoo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
because that's actually a big part of their faith. Santeria
Mm-hmm.
also has spirit contact,
Right.
spiritualism. Like so I would classify Witch of Endor as a spirit, as more of a spiritualist than a actual.
Yeah,
Um,
our modern word medium, does that fit her
yeah,
better?
yeah, yeah. A medium is a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I go between, but and the problem is that you have to be religiously minded to understand a lot of these things and where they're coming from,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't bottle spirituality in a test tube and run a test on it.
Yeah,
You can't put it through AI. It's like, this is where faith comes in,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's something that I've recently learned from musing on it. Is that where reason hits a dead end, that's where the faith takes over.
Mm-hmm.
Is that now that I have the information, am I where the ball's in my court? What am I going to do? Am I going to make a conscious decision to trust what I'm being told here, or am I going to ignore it and go about my way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so especially since John Dee, because I mean, even Ellen G. White, she received a vision and guided her on how to create Adventism. Or even
Mm-hmm.
Joseph Smith, he was visited by an angel and had an experience.
Yeah, Moroni.
Whether you believe him or not, he's part of the record,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So how angels function in the Mormon context, which is something that's actually natively like created in America,
Mm-hmm.
which should be talked about a lot more, because Mormonism is basically a Christianity that's homegrown from America,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which has its own context and
Yeah,
has a lot of its own assumptions and things.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but they have something to add to the tradition, and it's that special divine experience that substantiates, like, I had a vision and spoke with angels and they told me X.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's what we get with John's apocalypse. That's what
Mm-hmm.
we get with, like, again, like the Jewish apocalyptic tradition. That's a part and parcel of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's not two separate things in the Jewish mind. Like,
Yeah,
like
it makes me wonder if, and I know we're way off the base of angels here, and certainly Michael and Gabriel and so on and so forth. But it makes me wonder if John's revelation, apocalypse, would be in the canon if it wasn't for John. I mean, does his credentialing, is that the thing that brings that book in lock, stock, and barrel? Nobody even questions it. Because if John's name's not attached to it, and it isn't John receiving the revelation, where does that fit? Because that book screams apocalyptic Judaism and just
well,
screams,
it just is apocalyptic Judaism.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's the New Testament version of Daniel. It absolutely
Right,
is in that tradition
right.
that we read
So,
in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
y-
It's
so if we took
direct one for
John's,
one.
well, if we took John's name off of it, would it carry enough weight to run into the New Testament?
Probably not. Actually, the Apocalypse of John was actually the final book to be added to the canon, and I don't think it was finalized until the 300s.
Yeah, yeah,
Whether it would be like an official part of canon or not, because it
right.
sounded so weird. And then
Yeah,
plus it, and then even with John's name on it, since critical like minimalist critical scholarship has found out that pseudepigrapha is a thing. Now they're wondering if, like, literally every book that's written by Christians in the
yeah,
era is
yeah.
pseudepigrapha.
Right, right.
It's like, well, which creates a problem for us, but at the same time, it's that that definitely was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but John's Apocalypse is that it had to be reviewed by a committee, and it was finally allowed in the 300s. But, like, I can get why they kept it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. That's more of an aside.
Yeah, because
So,
again, also, like, look at Testament of the Patriarchs, or Ascension of Isaiah,
yep,
or even Apocalypse of Peter, that was read
yep,
by the Coptic churches that we
yep,
learned from
yep,
the Muratorian fragment.
yeah,
That, well, like, apocalyptic literature is early in the Christian tradition, and that's pulling from, like the only precedent we have from that is either they're reading Septuagint Daniel, or they're they're in contact with the Essene material,
mm-hmm,
using that with Daniel, Greek or Hebrew Aramaic, and then using that to inform them, because there's a lot of parallels in Daniel to Revelation, like they just carried forward the prophecies.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Which it reminds me of a question or of a thought that I had a little bit earlier in the conversation, which is going to First Enoch, kind of leaving second and third off the plate, going to First Enoch, and wondering is is Enoch a is it a kind of an allergic reaction to something that's going on 300 years before Jesus? Is this why they're writing it? Are they polemicizing something that is living in a Greco-Roman or a Greek environment? Because at that point it's Greek, right? The Romans haven't even showed up yet, I don't think. I mean, they don't literally show up until 60, 70 years before Jesus. So at the time that one Enoch is being written, are they writing this as a polemic pushback against something that's Greek? Because they're also writing it, now that I think about it, interestingly enough, they're writing it as guys like Plato are getting, their feet under them. It's about the same time. So it makes me wonder if First Enoch um, is that polemic like I said, an allergic reaction to something that's going on in the surrounding Greek world that Jews are living in. And then you've got 3 generations later, and suddenly Enoch, for some group of Jews, has become uh, um, doctrine. It's become authoritative, should I say, you know, or so critically important that they're going to jam it right in there with the other 39 books of what we consider to be Old Testament, which we know that they had more than that. Septuagint shows us that demonstrably. Which then leads me right back into thinking about these angels that are listed. Because now, as you've pointed out, Gabriel and Michael are the only two in the canonized 66 books. And you got all these other angelic beings that are living in apocalyptic literature, like First Enoch and others. And suddenly you're wondering, okay, where is all this coming from? Are they
Yeah.
inventing it out of whole cloth? What are they doing?
Yeah, that's what gets me is like, so where does the angels things come from? Because a lot of it, it makes me think that it's a Babylonian import. Because when we look at who has a fleshed out doctrine of angels in antiquity,
Hmm.
um, it's normally the yeah, it's normally like a very Eastern thing because we see it in pre-Islamic Arabia. We see it in, actually, I have a list here. Hold on. Yeah, we see it with Hindu devas, pre-Islamic Arabia. They have spirits. Even into Islam, we see the
Hmm.
jinn occupying that role. Manichaeism, which will stretch to China and even to Saint Augustine in
Hmm.
North Africa.
Hmm.
They have an angelic system, probably based off of the archons
Hmm.
idea because they're prison planet people. You
Hmm.
have Mithraism, which is from Persia.
Hmm.
Zoroastrianism
Hmm.
has angels, which is Persian. Even a Roman religion, you have the genius,
Hmm.
which links to the role of like the holy guardian angel that can also come from that also Jewish tradition has from jubilees and I think it's Genesis 42 when Jacob gives a bless, or no, it's in Jubilees. This is when Jacob gives a blessing. He says, "Have your angel guard my kids."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so and that's you have holy guardian angel stuff from that, which plays into the Enochian magic tradition.
Yeah. So when you paint that picture, is suddenly seeing a a text like First Enoch as a polemic, and again, as I say, an allergic reaction to the surrounding environment. It doesn't make that sound so far-fetched. And, you know, uh, the final thing to say for me in it here is that, okay, again, because this is a pushback I get all the time from people that I tell this to well, are you telling me that the Jews are just repackaging paganism? And I'm like, no, they're all living in the same cultural stew. And this is the Lord's doing. Yahweh is driving the ship, but he's not doing it outside of the stew that they're all simmering in. He's doing it in that environment. And these are human beings, and they're not robots. They're not just writing, um, you know, this isn't, uh, uh, you know, Joe Biden's auto pen signing Yahweh's name to everything. This is an interaction between Yahweh and human beings writing within their their worldview, the way they think. So yeah, the angel stuff shows up, and so now suddenly I'm looking and going, okay, well, what about this? Because this is kind of odd. It's kind of weird. It's the, you know, uh, it's the, let me tell you the story of, Genesis 6. Let me explode that story in its detail. Well, why? What's the motivation? Is there something happening around you in the greater pagan world that is, you know, you're reacting to that, and so you put together this whole tome so that, they've got the story straight about, what it is that they know of Genesis 6, 1 through 4. Um, hmm, I don't know. Questions I've never thought of before, never have asked myself. But I don't think it's just a matter of, well, the Jews are just downstream of the pagans and they're just writing their own version of it. No, I don't think that's right. I think you've got the nations, and Israel is God's nation. That's his son, and led by Michael, the archangel, absolutely. The prince out of 70 other princes that are leading the 70 other nations. Sure. That's very coherent to me. Very coherent.
Yeah, but you have to account for how all of them arrived at that conclusion
Hmm.
without talking to the Jewish material because they don't because no one has access to the Hebrew stuff until the Septuagint.
Yeah, uh, yeah, no. How do we know? I mean, seriously. I mean, well, are we talking about Jews? Are we talking about pagans? Are we talking about both?
I'm talking that, well, especially Western pagans do not have access to any of the Jewish material until the Septuagint.
I thought they had access in the diaspora.
Well, they can't read Hebrew.
Well, Hebrews can translate it for them. They're learning their native language. I can't imagine that Jewish story is completely bottled up and inaccessible in the diaspora through Jews that are sitting somewhere in Anatolia. I just can't imagine that is the case. Just like, let's look at the biblical record, and Abraham's wandering around all over the Levant, all over Canaan, and he's interacting with everything from, you know, Sodom and Gomorrah down to, Egypt. He's got lots of interaction. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't
I
know.
mean, it's just I'm noticing a pattern. It's that, you see all of the you see like because is that where does the angel doctrine come from? And I think they picked it up in Babylon.
Well, it could be that, yeah, well,
Because
certainly
the evidence is leading there because it's definitely a far eastern doctrine to
that I
have.
can, yeah,
and,
I
and the
agree.
thing is and the thing is even from Sankuniathon and from the Greek stuff.
Yeah.
The Theogony or the Titanomachy tales, or even the Aeneid, or actually probably not Aeneid. I need to read that. But yeah, but you see, it's that you have these lower tier gods that act as servants and emissaries for the higher gods.
Yeah, and you could be absolutely right, because when we're talking about this, everybody that's doing this stuff in Second Temple era are radically, vastly, the majority of them are returning Babylonian exiles.
Mm.
That's who they are. So their whole world is being shaped by Babylon. The diaspora is Assyrian, and it's long over. It's gone. And, just like the people are gone. They're not there. So they don't have that impact and that downstream that Babylon does, because everybody comes out of Babylon, comes back into Judea, and they're carrying all of that Babylonian material with them, which now I can look at that and go, well, okay, this is sensible that something like a one Enoch would carry a lot of Babylonian influence and a lot of Babylonian reason for even existing. And maybe there's a motive that is buried in Babylon that ultimately generates first Enoch, and then takes the two angelic beings that we have by name, of Gabriel and Michael, and then adds to the pile, because
Maybe.
they've got a pile of lesser god angelic beings in Babylon, and we got to do something with it. Can't let them have all the fun,
Right.
you know. Anyway, good study, man. Really, really outstanding study.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah, man. Good stuff.
I try.
Anything you want to close with before I end the recording?
Not really, no. I think I said my piece. I went
Okay.
and downloaded your things. I think, yeah.
Oh, all the stuff from the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, the chapter 3 rewritten second pass.
Yeah. See, that's where I got the thought that we were in chapter 3.
Okay.
Got it.
Well, yeah, I'll integrate that
Yeah. See what you
on
think.
my stuff
There you go.
because
Well,
that needs to happen.
Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.
Okay.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Those of you that are watching later on the recording on YouTube, thank you for, if you've gotten this far. Wow, you're a champion. You're a trooper. So hopefully something in this has helped you, enlarged you, given you things to think about, surprised you in some way. So anyway, we will end it off here.